this time, it is my pleasure to welcome to the stage our first moderator of the day, Katherine Caffrey, who serves as the city manager for the city of Des Moines. She will introduce our first panel discussion, our economic forecast, what leaders should expect. Please welcome Katherine.
Thanks, Sammy. So this first panel is really about, as our region continues to grow and evolve, understand the trends, opportunities, and challenges that are shaping South King County's economy. It's more important than ever that we have this conversation. So we'll be exploring what these changes in our region and area may mean for businesses, organizations, and our communities, while offering valuable perspectives on economic development, transportation, workforce, and public policy. So please join me in welcoming our distinguished panelists as they come to the stage. We have Senator Tina Orwall, Representative Mia Gregerson, if they want to start heading on over, Cathy View from the Port of Seattle, and Crystal Leatherman from the Washington Retail Association. I also want to give a shout out for starting the day with like a packed female powerhouse panel. Okay, so to get started, we'll do some introductions. Do each of you want to share again your name, role, and in one sentence, what economic trend you are paying closest attention to right now? Crystal, do you want to kick it off?
Sure. My name is Crystal Leatherman. I'm the Director of Policy and Government Affairs for the Washington Retail Association. And the trend I'm watching is the gap between what it costs customer-facing businesses with very thin margins like retailers and hotels and restaurants, what it costs them to stay open, and the cost, and how cautious customers approach or spend in those respective businesses.
Hi everyone, my name is Kathy Vu. My pronouns are she and hers. And at the Port of Seattle, I'm a Community Investment Program Manager. And the economic trend I'm watching is focused on the workforce, specifically in construction trades, maritime, aviation, and green jobs. And I'm really looking at the retired workforce that's happening right now, and the next generation of professionals are going to be entering the trades.
Good morning, I'm Tina Orwall. I have the honor of representing the 33rd Legislative District. Welcome to the 33rd. I think one thing I'm focusing on is that gap between economic growth and economic affordability, and it's impacting our businesses and our families. And are there policies that really can support both? Because that's what it takes to have a thriving community.
Good morning, I'm Tina Seatmate, Mia Gregerson, 33rd Legislative District, House of Representatives, and actually an alum from this college, so yeah. I'm currently a vice chair of the Appropriations Committee in the House and on the Housing Committee, Policy Committee. You know, for me, I'm really watching all things technology. I think that this state has a responsibility to really understand the entire ecosystem. Everything touches it, every policy committee touches it. It's not just AI regulation, it's not just data privacy, it's all the above. And I'm using the interim to really look at that. That is definitely connected to all the economic development in our state.
Great, thanks. We'll get started with several of our questions. So our first one is, when you look at the year ahead, where do you see the greatest economic pressure on South King County businesses? And where do you see the greatest opportunity? And we'll start with Representative Gregerson.
Well, there's a lot of pressures right now, especially since we're such a trade dependent state. The tariffs, we're watching the second round of tariffs. We're looking at the chill effect from the different immigration policies of the federal government. But we're also looking at a lot of innovation. Very excited at looking at new relationships between businesses that they haven't had before, whether it's short term, just to get us through the next few years, or whether it's long term. Again, I talked about technology, and I think there's a great opportunity to really align ourselves. And in South King County, and with businesses especially, we are such good problem solvers. We're very nimble and can really turn on a dime quickly. And I think a lot of innovation comes out of this part of the state, and looking forward to using state coffers to try to help look at those pilots.
Thank you. I heard the term the other day around South King County, it's where Washington works. We are an economic powerhouse. And you know, when I think about two items, I think about how do we align our workforce with our jobs that we have in South King County, and are we lining all the things up? And of course, this is the perfect route to talk about that around pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship. The other impact I think about on South King County, we do talk about regressive taxes, and one of the most is the B&O tax. And there is a discussion now about, you know, should we be looking at a margins tax? And I think it's important to have a discussion with the business community about what would make sense and what could that look like.
Some economic pressures from my perspective would be, I mentioned a bit earlier, the retiring workforce within the trades. You know, down in South King County, there's just a lot of operations around aviation manufacturing, construction, trades, and at the airport itself, the expansion of the airport and the waterfront, right, as with our maritime economy here as well, and knowing that in the next 5 to 10 years, that retirement workforce is going to be growing, and who's going to be going in to fill in that field. Another pressure as well is just, you know, we all know this, the rise in operating costs and supply chain, and as the port, we're in the business of moving people and moving goods by air, by water, and so I would say some opportunities are around green energy. You know, it's our goal to become one of the greenest ports in the United States, and so we're really, really excited to be innovative and look at what does green energy look like, what does that mean?
So I would say businesses here in the region can survive a hard year. It's been proven time and time again. What wears them down is an unpredictable one. I don't think anybody, regardless of industry, enters into a business thinking it's going to be an easy road, but what they're asking for is maybe a consistent and reliable roadmap that they can plan ahead. Because if you're already this, you know, where we're at in the year right now, July, you're already planning for next year. So some of the greatest pressures are, you know, tax increases, a combination of a rising wage floor that shifts depending on, you know, city by city. And then there are also other regulatory expenses when different policies come in, whether that's dealing with like environmental or extended producer responsibility, or, you know, data privacy, or other employment law related policies. Those all compound on top of one another. But when I look at the opportunities, this is one of the most diverse, both economically and industry, as well as demographically, regions in our state. We have a large distribution corridor, there's aerospace, you're minutes from the airport, and then we also have one of the densest immigrant and refugee small business populations in the state as well as in the country. I looked at the statistic. It says 1 in 5 entrepreneurs in Washington State are either an immigrant or a refugee business owner, and they're responsible for $3 billion bringing in $3 billion worth of revenue to our state. That is pretty massive, and then we also have access to a very diverse multilingual workforce, which is incredibly advantageous for us, not just locally, but on a global scale.
That's great. You know, Crystal, you just commented about some of the small businesses, and then I'm seeing a lot of these comments come up about those financial pressures, both really from a tax base that small businesses are facing. So as we head into a legislative session, do Representative Gregerson or Senator Orwall have any thoughts or crystal ball predictions on maybe issues the state may take up this next session?
Well, you know, last year we passed the millionaire's tax, and we did a lot of research to figure out how do we start to make a tax system that's more fair and more helpful to small businesses. And I think that the B&O tax reversal of the $250,000 of grocery receipts is a big change. Going to the grocery store and be able to purchase those goods, many of those goods without a sales tax, is going to be helpful. When we have healthy workers, they're able to go to work and then be able to focus on their job. The state is clearly in another year of challenges like everyone else when it comes to the uncertainty of the war, when it comes to inflation. We also had to invest $1 billion in silo, which is insurance claims, and so we really need to get control of that. This state, though, has done a lot of great work in putting programs together that helps people, helps the most vulnerable people, but the maintenance level of those programs are what's actually causing us to be in a deficit. So all those things are intertwined to help our small businesses, and as we are looking at reductions, the governor's looking at those now, we will be very sensitive to make sure that we keep things more as affordable as we can for small businesses. We cut red tape, we reduce bureaucracy, we help where we can, and that is also partnering with our local governments.
Yeah, I think the partnerships are really important to our community. You know, often South King County, we have the greatest needs and we don't always get the resources that come with that. I do think the conversation that Rep. Berg is doing on the margins tax, I think is an interesting one. This is a time for me to listen and learn, and that's why I'm excited to be here. You know, there's a proposal that'd be interesting to circulate and start getting feedback of how you could titrate away from that. I understand the B&O tax is especially hard on manufacturers, and we're a manufacturing hub. So again, I think we want to be learning what is good policy and what direction should we be moving. It's going to be a tough session. There's no doubt about it, but I think through partnerships and good policy, we can at least feel like we're moving in the right direction.
All right, that was my impromptu question, because you two were like, what wasn't on the email? All right, South King County is often described as a place of resilience, diversity, and entrepreneurship, which each of you have already commented on. How do those strengths show up in our regional economy? Cathy, do you want to kick it off?
Yeah, I think Crystal alluded to it a little bit as well, right? South King County is one of the most diverse areas in the Pacific Northwest. And I looked this up before, and I just saw, even just in Highline School District, there's over 95 languages spoken within one school district. And so before I worked at the port, I worked at the state, and we accepted a lot of refugees and immigrants that were also coming to Washington State, specifically King County, and a lot of them were living in South King County. We have the fall of Kabul in 2021, the Ukrainians who also came in 2022, and it's just really, really diverse. And with this level of diversity, I think there's a lot of opportunities for fresh ideas, for fresh business ideas, for experiences, and businesses that are just not the typical things that you would typically see in South King County. And so one program that I really, really want to highlight that's been really impacting the economy is actually right here on this campus, the Welcome Back Center. Through Highline College, we currently fund them to provide support for internationally educated individuals who come here because of war, and they want to get recertified, right? They want to come here, and maybe they're an engineer back at their home country and want to get recertified here so that they could then contribute to the economy as well. And so I think it's really important to think of innovative ways of how do we support the community where they're at.
That's great. Crystal?
I would say just trying to find ways to think outside the box and be innovative. I think that there are a number of industries where oftentimes we operate and do things the same way because we've always done them that way, and it's really important. And again, this is where it's valuable to tap into a diverse workforce and kind of just explore what kind of opportunities are out there for you to expand your business, grow your business, change up some of your practices and your models. I think that there's a lot of opportunity to be able to uncover and tap into different mechanisms for you to be able to be resilient in tough times. That again comes through accessing, local organizations, reaching out to your schools and colleges, because again, I think that's an underutilized resource for businesses. You have the college right here. That is a gateway to plenty of internship opportunities, because then you have a hungry, enthusiastic individuals who want to be able to work and be able to explore and tap into whatever industry that they're interested in. And then they are also, especially the younger adults, like they are ready to think through and just come up with like brand new ideas. That's how you see a lot of businesses thrive and evolve, is by being willing to take calculated risks and being able to take those chances where it makes sense for your industry.
Okay. Representative Gregerson or Senator Orwall?
I wasn't prepared to it.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry, I
I
was
will.
listening.
One,
Yeah. I mean,
our diversity is our superpower. It is our strength. You think about the global economies and how aligned we are for that. You know, I think about my kid's great-grandmother who came from Lebanon and raised her 4 kids in Kent and started a restaurant. And restaurants have very small margins, and went on to buy property, and she was a highly successful business woman, but she also helped other immigrants start their businesses. And that's the beauty. I think we need to lean into our restaurants or small businesses. It's a difficult job that they do. I also think we're highly innovative. I was talking to Senator Coffin yesterday from the 47th and talking about we should do a space caucus. What are we doing to expand jobs in this arena? You know, we have the skilled workforce, we have the most beautiful place on the planet is South King County, but we could be doing more partnerships and doing more support to the industry. So again, I think we're innovative. I saw that Seattle Times article the other day where Anthropic is putting more of its offices in our region. It should be South King, I think it's downtown. But again, I think we're a powerhouse on innovation, and we need to celebrate and expand those opportunities.
Can I have Yeah, I love it.
I have one more thing. I could do an entire TED Talk I want to say on the value of third spaces. So obviously I will advocate for retail and restaurants and bars, but there's also a lot of value in being able to create spaces where people want to, obviously not just work, but they also want to live. So this is where you're having really quality, safe parks where people can go and explore, where you have opportunities for kids to be able to go, especially our teens, making sure that they have a place that they can go and be able to explore and, engage with one another in a safe environment where they're not, exposed to some of the public safety concerns that we see that we're experiencing in the region as well. When we talk about retail theft or organized retail crime, you have these rings that are trying to recruit minors. But if you really put an investment in third spaces, whether that's parks, whether that's organizations like Boys and Girls Clubs, as well as a place for people to gather and socialize and be able to commune with one another and be able to engage with your community members, that also helps build up and protect the resiliency of the region.
Oh, go ahead.
okay. When we had one-time federal dollars from COVID, we were able to really invest in a lot of programs and test it and see what happened and what worked. And one of the things that really worked for small businesses, micro businesses, was navigators, helping people navigate these systems, solve their problems. And when we're under a budget crunch, those are the things, those are the ideas, those are the pilot projects that we're really looking at to make sure that we have a continuity of this work. Some of that is really important because as we prepare for census, we need to make sure that the trusted messengers, business owners, businesses, this community, you are trusted messengers and you can help interpret factual information to people. And then I also wanted to make sure I put a note on something that's a little bit more difficult to talk about, and that is the 33rd district had the #1 most childcare facilities open through some of those dollars. Since 2016, 10 years, we've invested 10 times the number of state dollars towards building out a robust childcare system, and it's working, and that is part of our maintenance load. But because of that, when we're talking about reductions, we're having to make those cuts. So one of the things that we did just this last year was change the attendance policy. And those are some of the things that are going to require those relationships with your small business owners and us, so that we can make sure that you understand why we made those changes and what can we do to go back, as the Senator said, during the interim to improve that. If we make decisions that were not compatible with these small businesses, how do we make sure that we do it so that they don't close, right? And we don't have a negative effect. So those are some of the things that we're working on that's innovative, that's very South King County based.
Those are great comments, such a great conversation. I just got gently encouraged to get us back on schedule. So we're gonna go to our last question. So if you were advising a small business owner, nonprofit leader, or executive team preparing for their 2026 strategy, what would you tell them to protect, invest in, or rethink? And I will gently encourage you to be brief, although I wish we could go longer. Cathy, let's see, whose turn? Oh, Senator Orwall, let's start with you.
Great.
Well, I think for next session, I would focus on partnerships. I think when you come in as a team, it's very powerful in Olympia. Examples would be, can businesses be partnering with labor? We had an example come up yesterday around the space industry and working with the pipe fitters. You know, maybe there's partnerships that can happen. Also on the internship, working with Highline College and other great institutions around these pre-apprenticeship and apprenticeship models, whether it's with labor or business. And I think that will be powerful. It's going to be a difficult session, and the more we can line up our priorities and come in as a team, the more successful we'll be.
So in my day-to-day work, I work with a lot of nonprofit organizations, and I fund them to do community-led career awareness programs in South King County. And so I think my audience would kind of be like, if you're in a nonprofit or you're leading a team, I would say definitely protect your staff and their mental health. I think right now in the region and just altogether, it's really tough out there for communities that we're serving, especially communities of color. And so a lot going on. People are getting laid off, immigration, there's just layers of it, right? And so I'm working with nonprofits. I think it's really important that you're always doing a lot with a very little bit of money. So protecting your staff and their mental health, and I think that's really, really important. Kind of very little. Invest in, I would say, invest in your young talent and invest in your internal controls. It's really, really important to be able to do the work and lead nonprofit organizations with confidence that you're meeting the expectations that funders will be looking for. And then when it comes to rethink, I would say rethink your strategy and programming, think systems level and how you could diversify your funding. It's a really tough funding landscape right now. We see like the impact of just what that looks, the ripple effect of what that looks like on nonprofits. And so start thinking of systems level programming more so than like one-on-one.
I would say you want to make sure you protect your best people. Make sure that, don't let a bad quarter make you make a talent decision that you have to undo. You spend the next 2 years undoing. You want to invest in the programs and organizations that exist. There are plenty of free or low-cost programs out there, like the Small Business Development Center. There's support programs, workforce council grants. Also, if possible, invest in memberships with your chambers, invest in associations or organizations that represent your industry. They are often conduits to low-cost or affordable options, whether that's like employer health plan costs or other resources. And then I would also say advocate. So these two women are incredibly brilliant and smart, and they know a lot about a lot, but they don't know a lot about everything, and that's where you are a valuable resource to them. Because as they're making policy decisions in Olympia, they need to hear from you about how those policy decisions would impact you. Like, don't be afraid to have those difficult conversations. Don't be afraid to converse with them and share with them and just invite them into your business to be able to like get first-hand experience on what it is like to run your operation, because again, that helps inform them for when they make their voting decisions on the Hill.
Do you want to close this out, Representative Gregerson? No, you're good?
I mean, you heard a lot of good comments. I think it's to be creative, be willing to be creative and look for private dollars.
Great. All right, well, please join me in thanking our terrific panel.